Good evening. Welcome to this presentation tonight, Indigenous Organizing. My name is Susie Beiersdorfer. I'm the president of the NCRN, National Community Rights Network. And with us tonight are members of the NCRN, Tom Groover from Colorado, Heidi Bertu from Virginia, Kara Scott from Pennsylvania, Nancy Ward from Oregon, and Doug Darrell from New Hampshire. I think I see everyone, and welcome to everyone. So we cross the nation in our connection with each other. So tonight is Indigenous Organizing, and we have been working and communicating with Winona Locke and Montgomery Brown for several months. And during the Standing Rock time, they were involved with the Colorado Community Rights Network, Tom Groover and some other people out there. So we are hoping they're going to call in. They weren't sure where they're going to be because I think about 10 days ago, they began a run and a prayer journey from Standing Rock, South Dakota to Line 3 to support the people there that had also supported their efforts in Standing Rock. So I know there's some videos on Facebook of runners and some prayer ceremonies. And so we're going to show a couple of videos. And like we said, we hope that they will be with us. We are certainly with them in solidarity and spirit. And so we will begin the program. So I have a 4-minute video that is some of the water protectors stopping Line 3, and they built like a little sweat lodge in the line. So Heidi?
Susie, hold on a second. We were going to give their introductions, their bios, to refresh our memories.
Thank you very much. Tom, do you have those ready?
You're muted, Tom.
Okay, thank you. Let me, hit the wrong button. All right, so I'm demonstrating my age, I think, by this. Here we are. There they are. Yeah, so if at any time one of these two guests calls in, we're going to break whatever we're doing and go straight to them. Winona Locke is from the Ana-Dene Dakota Lakota and the Anishinaabe tribes, and I'm sorry if I butchered the names. She's an activist, a mother of 3 beautiful children, and a former Lakota language teacher. And she says, language is the foundation of any people. It makes us unique and true to our identity. She currently resides on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. And Montgomery Brown is from the Wakpala, South Dakota, located on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. He is an activist for Indigenous and environmental issues. His work with youth helped to raise awareness for the resistance against the Dakota Access Pipeline. The youth group he helped support ran 2,000 miles on foot from Cannonball, North Dakota to Washington, D.C. to carry a petition of 140,000 signatures to the Army Corps of Engineers headquarters. Currently, he's a full-time student at Sitting Bull College pursuing a degree in criminal justice while advocating for awareness on tribal sovereignty and at-risk youth.
Thank you, Tom. I will go ahead now and share my screen and we'll watch this 4-minute video.
And just a reminder to help with the resolution, if everyone could turn their videos and audio off, that usually makes the sharing of the video better. during this time. So this is a 4-minute one, right, Susie? Okay.
Aku Mawi Jaboy
Hello.
Halito sa Hachafayuka Kalusa, Hansa Sikandabe.
At first, I just want to honor like the ancestors and spirits of this land. This land has always been, is, and it will continually be Anishinaabe and Dakota territories.
We're in a Wampanoag right now. That's what we're sitting in together. This space is for sweat, it's for ceremony, it's for teaching, it's for so many different, it's for living. I think it's deeply powerful to be in this sacred space in the midst of all of this.
I'm here today standing with my Indigenous kin. It's just shocking to me that we're doing something that is absolutely natural and traditional for this community, and it has been criminalized.
I'm here standing in the way of the Line 3 tar sands pipeline with my Indigenous neighbors. Christians have been a part of the cultural genocide. So I'm here today as a part of the season of Lent as a Christian to follow Jesus and repent and turn around, stand in the way of this madness.
As an Odawa Anishinaabe, I see it as my duty to come here and support my Ojibwe relatives. I'm also here to stand for the Menominee, and I see this as my duty to the future generations so that they can see these waters untouched by Enbridge and untouched by oil spills.
We support these people, we support their life ways, and absolutely, we must stop Line 3. I come here by way of Lenape-Hoking, so-called New York City, the epicenter of global capitalism. And I'm here in solidarity with my Indigenous and Black kin to remind folks that you're on fucking Indigenous land. And I'm not here to placate white settler politics that constantly disappoint. So this is a call that you're either with us or you're not.
An honor to be here. It's an honor to wake up this morning, pray for the land, pray for the water. You know, I want to give a big shout out to other land defenders, the people in Yellowfinch, you know, the Apache people in Oak Flat, the Mapuche Nation of Southern Chile protecting their homelands, all indigenous nations and tribes in the jungle, protecting their water, protecting their traditions and culture and way of life, you know, fighting against the same corporations. What happening here in the north is happening also in the south, and our struggles are interconnected.
We are in a moment right now. One path is going to lead to death and one path leads to life. And I'm here today because I choose life.
I'm here taking these risks because it's time to do something different. And we're not going to get that done comfortably or easily. Somebody has to take a stand. None of us are sacrifice zones, and it's time for change. We said no, and we're still saying no.
So Tom, you're going to now introduce the next video.
Yes, we do have a video that we did here in Lafayette, Colorado at a Colorado Community Rights Network event. And when Nia speaks, she gives a talk for 13.5 minutes. And so I want to play this for us. So I'm going to share my screen now.
Hamidakia pi wania machia pi iamoslata hematahan wakbala ektawati. My name is Winona Locke. I'm from Standing Rock. I am a Lakota, Dakota, Ishnabi, Otnadine woman. My mom is from the Copper River Valley in Alaska. And I grew up with the industry on my mom's side, and I watched every single one of my mom was one of 13, and I watched every single one of her sisters die of cancer. So I know the direct impacts of industry within rural areas and how it affects tribes. And then so when Standing Rock came about and when Dakota Access came about, there's something that I always want to share with people and to have them understand that Standing Rock grew organically. It was no big nonprofits that created Standing Rock. We were all grassroots. We were everyday people. We are doctors, we are nurses, we are teachers, we are janitors, we are waiters, we are bus drivers. Every imaginable skill made it to camp because they felt a calling deep inside them. And it was the people who didn't make it to camp that were praying for us that definitely protected us at that time. But it was grassroots that created camp, and it was grassroots that held it down from the beginning until the end. What made us really famous though, even though like we were as grassroots, we were doing all the work and getting this information, compiling it together to get it be known about Dakota Access Pipeline crossing the Missouri River, which the Missouri River is 12,000 years old. And then, 1.4 million people drink from it. And how many states will be affected by Dakota Access Pipeline when it breaks? It's no longer if, it's when it will break. How many people will be affected by it? And so now we're at the stage of where we need to no longer be protecting, but we need to be ready for when this breaks, and especially all the people along the Missouri River. And then we saw the devastating effects from when the Noah Bridge was taken out in Nebraska, which is only like 500 miles south of us, again, along the Missouri River. And you can see the stability of the land and the shell, and the sand is not stable at all for pipelines at all. But one of the things that made Standing Rock so famous was our youth. And that's one thing that I really encourage each and every one of you that is here right now, is you find someone and you just pick one youth that you engage with, and you talk to them about being active, and you engage with them about becoming lawyers and doctors and EMTs and welders, so that way they can engage in protecting our environment. Because that was our youth runners. They did a total of 3 runs. They ran, the first time was 11 miles. It was really fun. And what I liked about that, it was strictly Standing Rock people. And it was Standing Rock people pulling out from our own pockets to fund the gas, to buy the water, to buy the nutritional snacks. Because within resistance, you also promote healthy lifestyles and healthy living, and having a really, like, healing yourself psychology wise, mentally. And so it was really cool. The first run was 11 miles. We ran across the Missouri River. We actually did not get permits, but we had approval by verbal approval from Mobridge and Walworth County that we let them know we were going to run, and they're like, okay. This is before permits were enforced in South Dakota. Because of us, now it's required. Now you have required permits for freedom of speech, which it's not freedom of speech, that's a form of control. So we did run, and we did shut down the bridge for 2 hours because, one, we were not expecting Standing Rock people to show up. There's only actually 20 people that confirmed. And we had over 40 runners show up, and they were all youth. And minus 5 adults that were running with them. But they were ranging from the age of 4 all the way to the age of 28. And then when I say 5 adults, that meant they were over 30. One of them was my father. So my father is also a no DAPL runner, and he's 68, so he's old. I love him, but he can outrun all of us. He can outrun all of us. He still runs every day. He runs 3 miles out and 3 miles back, so it's a total of 6 miles a day. So he's like fit. The second run again was from Cannonball, North Dakota, all the way down to Omaha, Nebraska. That was 530 miles they ran. And that was incredible because it was a small group at that time. There was only like 25 runners that were doing a relay. And in order to endure that, they literally had to get by on prayers. And again, because we were such a small movement at this time, we didn't have big nonprofits like, oh, we can help you guys. It was still us. And so the second run was all grassroots. And it was literally, we would find a coordinator the day before we hit the next town. And like, we need food and we need gas money, but we're running. And the next town they would show up. I mean, we would like, and it kept going like that all the steps of the way. It was amazing. And that's how we united all the tribes within South Dakota and in Nebraska about being no DAPL. And then recognizing that going all the way down to Missouri, how all these tribes are going to be affected. So they carried our petition. It was called People Over Pipelines petition. That campaign took off like wildfire beyond our scope. None of us knew that, but our petition was People Over Pipelines, and they carried it all the way to the Army Corps of Engineers, asking them to deny the permit to be built on Army Corps of Engineer lands, which is unceded treaty territory of the Lakota people. And then it just kept growing. And then the DC run happened next. They ran from Cannonball again to Washington, DC, carrying a different petition called Respect Our Water. And again, these are all youth, and they're amazing, amazing youth runners. And out of those no DAPL runners, all of them are 100% doing well. You know, they're really steadfast. They're all in college right now. And they're really active about making Standing Rock and Cheyenne River and Lower Brule and Rosebud a better place. And that's one thing that the run taught them, was to be steadfast. So when I look out, I would like to see more young people with you guys. And as a community within resistance of the fossil fuel industry, my #1 recommendation is pick one youth and drag them with you. And then the second thing that I really want to stress is Indigenous rights. So within Colorado area, we always need to acknowledge the tribal people. So that would be the Arapaho, the Shoshone, the Ute, and acknowledging that this is tribal land and that these lands were stolen. And for the people that are going hand-to-hand combat with the state and the federal government, that our treaty rights do protect you guys, not just Indigenous people. And they protect everyone, and they need to be utilized. And so contacting these tribes that have been relocated out of Colorado, because they still have claim here. They still have claim to this land historically, but they also have federal laws that protect them on this land, even though they have been federally removed. So utilizing these tribes to protect everyone and forcing the government, and that's one thing that just aggravates me with politicians and everyone like that. It just, these laws are already created to protect us. These laws already exist. Our job is to enforce it and make them be held accountable to upholding their own laws. And that's one thing that we need to go full force with, and that's what we have civil disobedience for. That's the third thing that I recommend, is getting ready for civil disobedience and not be afraid, and creating a network where fear-mongering is not allowed, where rape culture is not allowed, where white privilege is not allowed, where white fragility is not allowed, where instilling treaty rights is allowed, where you are no longer tokenizing Indigenous people to speak at events like this. And that's something that I really share. it's hard for me to leave Standing Rock because I am a Lakota language teacher and I'm still active within my community and revitalization of our language. I do a lot of transcribing and a lot of, because I'm no longer teaching, I do a lot of transcribing and translating currently. I still work within No DAPL. We're still in litigation. People always ask me what's the latest update on No DAPL, and we're still in litigation. The first 2 rounds we lost and we keep refiling, and I honestly don't believe that Standing Rock and NCRN will ever give up. And I think they're gonna keep refiling and refiling and refiling and until they win. So the next thing that I'm always asked about is KXL. And yes, we are getting ready for KXL. And how KXL affects everybody is because the Ogallala Aquifer, actually, you guys, Colorado is part of that line hookup for the Ogallala water aquifer. I don't know exactly which parts, but I do know that some of the water from the Ogallala water aquifer is being shipped over here, piped into here. Isn't it crazy? This one thing that blows my mind is they'll have a full EIS for a water line, but they will not have a full EIS, that's environmental impact statement, of a pipeline, an oil pipeline or a gas pipeline. It blows my mind that they'll do a full EIS and they'll even acknowledge NAGPRA, which is Protection of Artifacts and Graves of Indigenous People of this land. It's called Section 106. That's another law that will help protect you guys from fracking. Is Section 106 is they will even acknowledge those for a water line. And it just blows my mind. Like, why won't you do that for an oil line, a gas line? Like, what are you guys doing? So it's, at some point, we do hope that the government and the corporations will feel the effect of their choices. And because we're the first ones. And that's one thing that was really devastating is like when we were in Texas, they didn't prep us at all. So they brought a whole delegation of Standing Rock and No DAPL people down to Dallas, Texas. And when I got to see Kelsey Warren's house, and I got to see him have a private lake within his own house, and I got to see, you know, the 10-car garage, and then I got to see his whole cement fence around his property. I was just like, wow, he will never, ever feel the effects of the whole Midwest from his decision. As the CEO of Energy Transfer Partners, he will never feel it. And it just really struck me then that we're no longer up against like the governing systems. We are up against corporations. It's, you know, it's an oligarchy system. So those are the 3 recommendations that I share with you, is to have real meaningful relationships. Last night was great. I got to meet half of you guys. I'm really thankful for that. And I like having those open dialogues and meaningful discussions and not being tokenized. I appreciate that. And because when you're no longer tokenizing Indigenous people, you allow these real meaningful relationships to develop. And then you start developing this system of caring for each other. And then you feel connected. And when you feel connected, you feel steadfast. And when you feel steadfast, you can be activated. So that's just the things I really want to share is our Indigenous rights not only protect us, they protect you. And to utilize them and to contact the tribes that are currently from this land and see how you can help them in protecting the land and your community. And then remember that grassroots is what started Standing Rock. And what made Standing Rock famous was our Indigenous youth runners. So that's all I wanted to share with you guys.
Wow, Tom, that was fabulous.
So I have a suggestion or wondering if I'm not going to use the poll like we did last month. But we do have a 13-minute video from Democracy Now! With Winona LaDuke, who was arrested, stopping line 3, along with many other activists. Or we can just go into discussion now. Heidi, I texted you and Tom, but I wasn't sure. It's 8:30 now, so we could probably have a really good discussion about, some of the things that Winona talked about, like creating meaningful relationships and energizing. Okay, somebody says Winona video, please. So it's Democracy Now! Also, so it's also great. And we can always go a little bit over if people are interested in staying on 9 o'clock. So I will go ahead and put that video on and sit back and enjoy.
Great choices, really great.
Thank you again, Tom, for the Winona video. That was really great.
You're welcome.
Okay, let me just get.
Tom, while Susie's getting that ready, if you would later just say a little bit more about when that was and what that conference was about.
Yes, that was a part of a conference we had called Redefining Environmentalism for Climate Emergency. And that was a session on lessons from Standing Rock. And let's see, I'd have to look for my details here about when it was recorded. I recorded that.
Well done.
Obviously, it was after Standing Rock, but not too long after Standing Rock. We participated in Standing Rock. We sent one of our members up there with a giant agricultural water container full of water for them. And that was kind of interesting. It was published May 3rd, 2019.
Next best thing to having her here.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. And yeah, and Montgomery Brown was one of the runners then and one of the organizers of the runners now. So, okay, I will go ahead and start this.
Thanks.
This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman. We look now at the ongoing resistance to construction of the Enbridge Line 3 tar sands pipeline in Minnesota along the Shell River, which the partially completed pipeline is set to cross in 5 places. Nearly 600 water protectors have been arrested during protests against the pipeline so far. On Monday, authorities arrested Indigenous leader Winona LaDuke and at least 6 others. She was just released from jail yesterday and joins us now after 3 nights in jail. She's executive director of Honor the Earth, her latest book, To Be a Water Protector, joining us for her home on the White Earth Reservation in northern Minnesota. Winona, welcome back to Democracy Now! Why were you arrested?
I was arrested because I wanted to stop Enbridge's Line 3 from crossing the Shell River. I've been appointed guardian ad litem for the Shell River by the 1855 Treaty Commission and by my tribe. And Enbridge is trying to finish this line, and along with it's now 600 people have been arrested. But we stood there in front of the police for quite a while with our people and our horses and our children, and they arrested 7 of us.
Explain who owns Enbridge Line 3 and why you want it shut down.
Well, Enbridge Line 3 is owned by the Enbridge Corporation, the Canadian multinational that also owns the pipe under the Straits of Mackinac. And it's a really risky Canadian corporation, 225 subsidiaries with all the money kept in Canada, and they're shoving this pipeline down our throat. And about a month ago, the Minnesota DNR, which is probably the most corrupt agency in the state of Minnesota, allocated 5 billion gallons of water to Enbridge in the middle of a drought. They knew about the appropriation request in November. In December, they began studying it, and they didn't even notify the tribes until May. And then they issued the permit in June. 5 billion gallons in the worst drought in history. You know, our rivers are down 50%, 75%, and yet this pipeline is marching ahead in the middle of this drought. And, you know, ironically, you're looking here and like more and more money is being divested from the tar sands. I mean, the Saudi sovereign fund, you know, divested like $3 billion from the tar sands, and Chevron and New York Pension Fund and Royal Dutch Shell. They're all looking at doing this. It's like the last tar sands pipeline, and Enbridge wants to shove it down our throats, and our Anishinaabe people and water protectors have been standing strong. And you got to say, like, who wants to be have the last tar sands pipeline? It's the end of the party. But the Enbridge way seems to be to keep pushing ahead. They've I think it's called regulatory capture, when they take over your regulatory system and your police. Because I think, as you know, Amy, the majority of the Enbridge has been required by law to pay for the police forces in northern Minnesota, required to put in their pipeline. And, you know, one has to ask, if it was such a good idea, why do you need so many police? But,
let's talk about the police. The Intercept reported Thursday that Minnesota police expected the Line 3 pipeline to help boost their budget to fund new weapons. The article reveals that a few weeks before Line 3 was approved for construction, Aiken County Sheriff's Deputy Aaron Cook bought a new assault rifle that cost $725. In a November 2020 email, Cook wrote to the gun seller, quote, "Our budget took a hit last week, so that's all we'll be ordering for now. I'm hoping the pipeline will give us an extra boost next year's budget, which should make it easy for me to propose an upgrade trade to your rifles rather than a rebuild of our 8 Bushmasters," referencing another assault rifle. Your response, Winona?
That's exactly right. They've been bankrolling the northern police departments. Some of the police departments, like Aiken County, was saddened by COVID because they had to let people out of prison or out of jail there, and losing money on their budgets in that dysfunctional system. And so, you know, at this point, Enbridge has been financing all these northern police departments. And so you're seeing 40 different squads show up from counties throughout the state to repress water protectors who are just trying to protect the water in northern Minnesota and arrest, you know, hundreds of us. And, you know, it's a civil crisis when a Canadian multinational controls your police force. You know, I thought the police were supposed to work for the people and not for the Canadian multinational, but that's not what's happening up here. The Canadian multinational has taken our civil rights, you know, clearly, you know, myself among many been put in jail. I mean, that's the Enbridge way. Control the police of the states in Minnesota, you know, the state of Minnesota, and shove your pipeline through. You know, it's so wrong from every aspect.
Winona, talk about this related to the climate emergency. We're talking to you as there are some 80 massive wildfires burning something larger than the city of Los Angeles, all through the West, Montana, Oregon, Washington, California. You've got Salt Lake, the Great Salt Lake, at its lowest level ever. You've got the fires rage, in China, you've got this massive flooding in central China, which forced to evacuate hundreds of thousands of people. How does that relate to your arrest?
Well, you know, Enbridge's Line 3 is the equivalent of adding 50 new coal-fired power plants. You know, you don't get a tiara for putting this one in. And, you know, so what's happening is that every day now you see the haze from the Canadian wildfires. We see our rivers are parched. But yet we see Enbridge and the DNR, Minnesota DNR, guarding hoses as they suck, you know, millions of gallons of water out of our river to put in this Canadian tar sands pipeline in the worst disaster of a drought, you know, and these massive fires that are to the north and west of us. It's you know, really a devastating time for all of us as climate chaos descends upon us. And then yet you see Governor Walz decided to sell us all out, to sell out the Anishinaabe people and the people of Minnesota so he could get 23 jobs at the end of this, 23 jobs, you know, from a Canadian multinational. It's really, you know, it's so wrong. It's so wrong. And the Biden administration is just sitting by and watching it happen. I mean, I'm watching river after river get frackouts on them in northern Minnesota. These are pristine river systems. You know, I'm watching things get destroyed as Enbridge ravages through our country. And then I'm watching hundreds of people get arrested trying to protect our water and to stop the climate disaster that Enbridge's Line 3 represents. we're looking for more divestment in that. It's a $9 billion pipeline right now, the most expensive tar sands pipeline in the world. And as I said, that's like a great gamble at the end of the fossil fuel era, the most expensive tar sands pipeline in the world. And it's brutal. It's brutal out here. I didn't like my 3 days in jail, but that's the Enbridge way.
Talk about what a frack out is, and have there been leaks?
This is a new pipeline project going in, but they're crossing like 69 rivers, and 22 of them with this thing called the HDD, which is a super phallic, horrible drill system, the high direction drill, horizontal direction drill. And so what happens is that they're drilling like underneath the rivers, and they hit an aquifer, and they shoot out into, or they hit a beam, a seam that shoots out into the river in some spring that they didn't know about. And all of a sudden you got a bunch of like toxic bentonite, all kind of crazy stuff at the bottom of the river. And, the thing is like the Shell River is a pristine river, crossed 5 times by Enbridge, hit by industrial agriculture like RDO Offutt, and it has the largest mussel population in the upper Mississippi River. It has this huge and beautiful mussel river, hence the name Shell River. And those guys don't last through frackouts, just the, Army Corps of Engineers, the Department of Interior, all of these agencies are looking aside as Biden seems to, approve the tar sands pipeline. And
that's interesting. You mentioned the Department of Interior because it's a first Native American Secretary of the Department of Interior, Deb Haaland. She actually was at the protests in North Dakota against DAPL. About 200 major activists, celebrities, Democratic donors, and environmentalists sent a letter demanding that President Biden stop Enbridge's pipeline project like he did with Keystone XL, and to firmly establish the principle, they said, that we will move forward toward real climate solutions. But the Biden administration has not done this. Has Deb Haaland weighed in? Not only not done this for Enbridge, but not done it for DAPL, where she was there protesting the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Yeah, sadly, Deb Haaland has not stepped up on this, and the Biden administration certainly has chained her to their position. It's tragic. There's no federal environmental impact statement on this project. It wouldn't pass a climate test. It's even bigger than Keystone. So if Keystone wouldn't pass a climate test, why would this pipeline pass a climate test, let alone the water impact? This is 1/5 of the world's water. Enbridge is in the middle of, of the water wealth of our territory, the heartland of the water. And the Army Corps of Engineers and Department of Interior, no agency has stepped up to protect the waters of the people of Minnesota, the Anishinaabe, trust responsibility, nor, any of the waters of this territory. And it's so disappointing that the Biden administration is throwing Indigenous people under the bus, the water under the bus. There's no new water, and that everybody is tolerating more and more arrests as if, that's how it goes these days. We just keep arresting people because, we think our project's a great thing. I'm so disappointed in the Biden administration, in Deb Haaland, in every agency. I'm so disappointed that they are destroying our planet so Canadian multinational can make a buck at the end of the tar sands.
Winona LaDuke, I want to thank you for being with us. Longtime Anishinaabe activist who's been organizing for years to block the Enbridge Line 3 pipeline, executive director of Honor the Earth, her latest book, To Be a Water Protector. As we continue with these arrested developments, we'll go to another woman who was arrested this week in Washington, D.C., the Reverend Liz Theoharis of the Poor People's Campaign. Stay with us.
Oh,
Yeah, that was pretty powerful. So why don't we now, talk about some of the things that we have seen or heard. I know when Winona was talking, she was talking about making connections, and she talked about civil disobedience, and Winona was talking about captured agencies, and I think most everyone on this call has experienced that, thinking that our government is protecting us, and then getting caught in the hamster wheel of the fixed system that wants us to put in public comments and go to testimonials and call your state legislatures, and basically we just keep spinning and spinning. So I know Native peoples have been standing up for hundreds and hundreds of years, but certainly Standing Rock brought it more into the mainstream attention. And, hopefully this Stop Line 3 stopping Enbridge will also get the recognition it deserves and the support from all of us. So Tom, I know you had some questions that you were gonna maybe talk with Winona or Montgomery about. So I don't know if we want to start out with something like that. To get
Yeah, I
things
mean, I wanted to discuss with them what it means to be colonized from their point of view as Indigenous people here on this continent. And, I thought that would have been a fantastic conversation. And of course, we spent a lot of time last month on what it means to be colonized. And so if anyone has anything to contribute, they'd like to ask a question or have a discussion on any topic, if you could just chime in. You can go on the chat and enter your information there, and we'll be happy to call on you.
or you can probably just speak up. It looks like
Yeah, or
got
raise
a
your
good
hand.
circle.
Yeah, you could speak up too.
You can also raise your hand down in the navigation bar at the bottom, reactions on the far right. We'll give you the option to raise your hand, so to make you more visible.
There's a Ben hand
Oh, good. And
Ramon after. Yes, Ben.
Yeah.
Unmute.
So, hi, was Ramon up first?
No, you were.
Okay, well, I just wanted to pass along some information about the folks in Thacker Pass who are standing up against the proposed lithium mine there. So we just got word from Will Falk, who is the young attorney that's worked with CELDEF and is working with the folks there at Thacker Pass. And the word that we have is that the people of Red Mountain, along with the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, have been granted intervener status in the lawsuit. And this is around the not just lack of compliance, but complete ignoring of the rights of the indigenous people there and their rights to their cultural preservation, their burial grounds, artifacts, and the rest of it. So they've been granted intervener status to make their case. And we don't have any illusions this is going to stop the mine at this point. We expect that it might actually at least delay things from going forward very quickly, which they could otherwise. So that's the current status of things over in Nevada.
Thanks.
Ramon?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw the Indigenous Organizing pop up as I was scrolling through and looking for, things that are real interest and, part of my life. And so for me, Indigenous Organizing is today is just still going through the that whole self-decolonizing process. And so I'm here in Toledo, Ohio. And so they've pretty much wiped out all of, as far as I can tell, is they've pretty done a really good job of wiping out our indigenous communities throughout Ohio. So I am currently, trying to, when I was thinking about Indigenous Organizing, I was just doing research and trying to find communities, progressive, active, indigenous communities here in Ohio that I can get connected to, so I can start the new pathway to engaging more in the self learning that was, you know, pretty much stamped out of me, but then also turn that around to really look at how to start doing like a movement building through self-awareness and looking at, you know, what is it here in Ohio and in our neighborhoods or our communities that we can start to do to start addressing issues, concerns around the, you know, in the environment and self-identity. So that's where I'm at. So you know, it's great meeting you all and seeing you all. And so I'm going to be on this journey. And so if any of you have any relationships or contacts with any progressive indigenous groups or communities in Ohio, you know, let me know. There is a serpent mound in, it's kind of like Southern Ohio. And so I'm going to be checking that out here relatively soon to see what I can, you know, if there's any kinds of movement building or, you know, anything that is around reclaiming and raising our identity and getting our rightful place in Ohio, you know, through an indigenous perspective. So I'm done talking. Good to meet you all, and you know, keep up the good work that you're doing.
Ramon, I wanted to let you know, I do not know personally these two groups, but there is a man, and I noticed that a woman, Tish Odell, is no longer on here, but we, with the Ohio Community Rights Network, we do have contacts with a man named, I think it's Sunshine out of Cleveland, but also there's something in Cincinnati. So I do have your email address and I can get that information and forward it to you.
You are in the land of Tecumseh, Chillicothe.
Who, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
I'm in the land of what?
Tecumseh.
Okay, I don't know what that means. What is that?
It actually means panther in the sky.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
I can hang with the Panthers. Actually, my indigenous families are Southern Texas, the Guajiltecs, and so I'm going to be checking that out, and on my mom's side. So you know, so I'm doing all of this to build up because, you know, I just really think that they've just done a really excellent job in destroying our language, our culture, and, you know, forcing me and everyone else to speak English, nothing else, be white, be all this other stuff that isn't even me. And they did a really damn good job of doing that. First the English language, then the Spanish language. You know, my original language is, I have no idea. So I'm really pissed off. I'm angry as hell.
Ramon, I'll put it in the chat. There's some really great podcasts, Red Media, some very young, very progressive Native peoples speaking out on all sorts of really important issues. It's called Red Media.
Okay, thank you.
And it's so they're controlling and their own message.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Richard? Richard, go ahead. Oh.
Yes, thank you. I'm here as a member of the Van Cleve Live Oak Choctaw tribe of Jackson County, Mississippi, and have been studying my people down there for the last 15 years. And I happen also to be an iconologist who studies holy images and the images of First People, among others. And I thought I would share one of those images with us tonight, because for me, it sits beside me as I do my work every day, writing and researching. And it speaks to Winona's language, and it speaks to Wania's language to us tonight. This is the hurricane god. I want you to see his belly just filled with power, but especially I want you to look at his face. This is a god that was an image that was created by the Calusa native people just as the Spanish were invading from Cuba back in the 1500s. And he gives me so much power. I think of him as a shaman figure who was sent north out of the Taino lands when the Spaniards genocided and collapsed Taino culture in the Antilles. And the message he was carrying was, get ready. Killers are coming. Killers are coming. Killers are coming. Killers are coming. Get ready. But I want us to all remember that we are still here. All of us who are today Native people of North America, we are still here. And we are powerful. We are powerful as this figure. We won't be overcome. And I just want to appreciate the entire Rights of Nature movement. I was with Heidi today and have been with Heidi and Kenda Hanuman and others here in Central Virginia for many years, fighting the $8.5 billion Atlantic Coast Pipeline. It's proof that people power can put corporate power in the dust. There's no Atlantic Coast Pipeline anymore. And so I truly believe, and I really want to stand with the people up on Shell River who are standing against this filthiest hydrocarbon bomb on the planet. It is insane that they continue to mine this asphalt and use the water resources of Canada and the natural gas resources of Canada to reduce it to a sludge and bring it to bear on Mother Earth, who's groaning. So I just want to ask us all to remember Hurricane God. We are still here. We're very strong. We'll never be defeated. Takio Yasin, all my relations.
Thank you.
I would like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the land of the Yampa. Which was later shared with the Arapaho, who were driven out of the Great Lake region by the onslaught of white people and the Cherokee.
I see Diani here.
The Cheyenne, sorry.
Diani, would you like to say something? She carries the Lenape tradition. You're muted, Diani. Yeah.
I wanted to listen to a little while first because somebody came to me with a complicated problem right at the first part of the sign on, and so I didn't get in right away. So I don't know what the context of the conversation is. Could you clue me in a minute before I say something? Because I have no idea where we're going on this.
Oh, oh gosh. Not sure what you did you get? Did you just get in?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm drawing a blank. Could somebody summarize?
I
Yeah.
just kind of need to know what direction the conversation is going in.
Yeah, well, we watched a few videos. Our guests tonight, Winona Locke and Montgomery Brown, are on a journey from Standing Rock, South Dakota to Minnesota, the stop line 3 with the youth runners.
Oh,
So,
good.
yeah, so when we talked last week, Winona wasn't sure that they would have signal wherever they were. So this is definitely, you know, they're in action. So we, there was a Democracy Now! I think it was early or late last week with Winona LaDuke. She was arrested there along with others. So we watched that. And then Tom from Colorado had an interview with Winona after Standing Rock. So she was talking just about Indigenous organizing and, you know, connecting with people and being in solidarity and you know, just being so connected to the land. And then we've just been having some discussion about, you know, which lands we're on and, you know, us colonizers. So we're glad you're here. So
thank you.
Yes.
I had a little bit of experience with that when my grandmother, clan mother, as opposed to grandmother, mother's mother, took on the rivers, the Susquehanna in Pennsylvania with her group of people from around the Ephrata direction, and got some barges and got some divers and and they cleared 14 miles on both sides, went to factories, talked to owners, fished out tires, you know, everything from the absurd to the ridiculous to the inspiring they got done. And so so when Standing Rock came along, I wanted to go so badly, and I've got terrible knees. I knew if I went into that cold that was happening at that time, I would never make it. But I was lucky enough to find here at Yogaville a young lady who had been a light, that's a living yoga trainee, somebody who wants to experience what yoga's like to see if they're interested or not. And one of the young men who was a landscaper, and we filled up an SUV with wood stoves, actual wood stoves, and balaclavas, so that if you got sprayed in your eyeballs, you had at least everything but this covered, and all kinds of things of that variety. And the kids left from here, but there was so much violence happening that I called Johnny Asaman, who was the one who was doing logistics in the camp, and said, fibbed a little, and said, my grandchildren are coming. I am sending them all the way from Virginia. Will you make sure you keep them safe? And he said, well, of course I'll keep them safe. Who are they? And I told him their names. I told them they'd be coming in a SUV loaded with things for the resistance, Coney. And so they got there. And one of the most touching things, I think, of that particular piece of resistance is that there was a young man who was riding with the elders for the first time. He was on his grandfather's horse, and the Swan people shot the horse full of the rubber bullets. And although, you know, it couldn't kill the horse, it lamed him. And the young man was he felt like he had failed, because, you know, that was his first time as a man riding with his elders, and, you know, and there his horse goes out from under him. He was just desperate. So I had this gorgeous horse head that made of some kind of mosaic. And so I gave that to the kids. I said, be sure you find this boy. And so they went there, and Johnny Seaman helped them find the herd of the horse riders. And they held a little circle, and the people didn't know. Here these crazy kids come running in from Virginia, and they want to hold a circle of the horse people. They were a little I don't know about this one, but they called the boy forth and told him that they were so touched by his contribution and the fact that he had given the best thing of his heart, his horse, and they gave that to him in circle. And they said every single one of the fellows that were riding for the group had to do a lot of wiping and a lot of they were very touched, and they put the horse out on the altar at the end of the lane with all the flags flying. And so it's resistance begins with the heart, not with any amount of money that you've raised, not with any amount of, it begins with knowing we are all relatives. It begins with the fact that traveling goodness is one of the things that makes resistance. And there's nothing more important than the fact of a feeling of solidarity with other people, simply because we are two-legged, we are put on the earth by Creator. We are surrounded by all of our allies of the spirit, all of the totems, all of the man there, I don't know what he's made out of that Richard is holding, but the gods are all, they all go to the same school. And the school that they go to says, the blessings of the earth, guarded by the tall standing brothers and the waters, the blessings of the earth are not for us to dominate, but to hold deeply toward our hearts, and to first find a feeling of love that makes us want to help, and then get out there and put the boots to the road and do the helping. Because many of us have the will to help, but don't have the spirit to put the boots to the road and get out and do that. So that would be my, I wish my boots would walk a little better. I would be at a lot more activist actions right now, but for everybody who's here, I'm sure you're here because your heart is touched, and hope that we can find a way to be the human medicine bags that hold the sacred. And in that case, if we are the human medicine bags that hold the sacred, we can't help but moving things forward in some way, even if we're not sure how it's going to end up. So Wanish, thank you very much from heart and spirit and everything, that everybody is here wanting to make some kind of positive mark for the Indigenous people.
Thank you, Diani. I see Michael, you just raised your hand. Tom, do you have the link to share of your video? And if you do, would you put that in the chat? I put the other two videos in there. And we probably should be closing soon, but Michael, would you speak?
I was just acknowledging what had been said.
Yes, Dion, thank you so much. That, you know, even though you weren't here in the beginning, it was like you were here. And one thing Juania said in that video was, grab a youth, find a young person. And I think we come across that a lot because, yeah, we're all aging, but, you know, I mean, and of course many are doing their own activism, but thank you again for that, the heart-centered activism for us all.
And Diani, this is being recorded, so we will be sending out the link to that.
Okay, so I'll get to hear what everybody said in retrospect.
Yep.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for coming tonight. And do you have Michael?
Yeah, I actually do have something quick to say.
Sure.
So I think it was 2015. I went out to Standing Rock in that winter with a truckload of wood stoves and a bunch of other stuff. And I was there for a little longer than I had planned to be. I just had planned to drop the stuff off and leave, but we got snowed in. And anyway, saw a few things. Was there when 4,400 uniformed service vets showed up. Was there when there was a temporary cease and desist and a kind of a celebration, and nobody expected it to hold, but I was there for that. That was pretty powerful. And then we got snowed in, and then we bugged out after the weather cleared a little bit, which wasn't a lot. It was pretty tough weather. But reflecting back on it, one of the most remarkable things is that it didn't end a lot worse in terms of the people who were there at that time. And you know, historically that would have been a bloodbath. And so take the victories where we find them. And we don't know what shape the road forward takes or what the twists and turns are. But this is kind of prophesied stuff, you know, like this is the time when there's two paths, and one path leads to some kind of sustainability and some balance, and one path leads to the radioactive parking lot. And may we all take the path that we want to take.
Oh.
J2.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight, and I hope we meet again in the future. Any last minute words from Heidi or Thomas or Tom, I mean?
I guess
I was thinking earlier about a topic for our next monthly event. And one of the things that attracted me this week is the study of the papal bull and the charter from King Charles the First to the second, that is, to William Penn Jr. Of the state of Pennsylvania. Pretty interesting stuff. And if we want to go down that rabbit hole, I think it's a worthy enterprise, because it really shows you very clearly what the doctrine of discovery is all about, and manifest destiny. This is the mindset that colonized this continent and other continents around the world. This is the mindset that created genocide on this continent and displaced people and formed the basis of primitive capital accumulation for today's wealth that we have, that we live with, the billionaires that we have to tolerate. So if we're interested in that, let us know. I'd really be interested to find out what people want to know, what they want to hear. But if you still have if you've taken the democracy school and you still have your democracy textbook, there's some really good stuff written in there. But I also found a lot of online resources. And I was really interested to see that the indigenous community here in this continent is really on to this, and they really understand it. As a group, I think they understand it pretty well.
We do have scheduled the end of August, presentation with Will Falk out at Protect Thacker Pass, protectthackerpass.org. I did put it in the chat. So
Good.
again, somebody on the front lines. So, we're just gonna, hold them all in solidarity and in spirit, and hopefully we'll connect next month. So thank you all for this evening, and let's see.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.